guys, thanks for tuning in. Welcome to our first of the series called Joyful Basics. I'm going to be doing classes here on YouTube, on my YouTube channel, in a playlist called Joyful Basics that just revisits all of my favorite types of stitches, projects that I've loved, and it'll become an ongoing reference for us going forward as I create more content for you. So today I'm going to kick it off with which probably one of my favorite things. And it's a special stitch for me for a lot of reasons, but in summary, it's called netted rope. It's so easy. I mean, it's super, super easy. And you can create these beautiful, just ropes that are so super flexible. Let me show you one that doesn't have the leather finish inside. So here's one in progress. And I'll show you this all on the mat too, but see how flexible this is? It's very, very easy to move. And I originally created one of these as a project for Tierra Cast a long time ago. They had these beaded rope caps, and it was the perfect fit for these little 3mm end pegs. And so that was one of the first projects I ever did professionally. That's why it's so near and dear to my heart to do this stitch for you guys as the launch for this series. So I'm going to switch my camera, and then I'm going to show you a little more details of what's going on with this project. So here's our beautiful project. And what is so cool about it is that, again, it's super flexible and very easy to construct. You can get away with making one of these with just 2 colors of 11-0 seed beads. It's really all you need, but you can really go to town making color blocks. The color block design is what I did for that original project way back in, I think it was 2018, 2019. I have to look, but it was a really cool, like, little bracelet and earrings project that combined this technique with the glue-in end pegs, which at some point, guys, I think I'm going to get some more of those in which case this video will become the how-to for the stitch, and then I'll create like a supplemental video that shows the project. I'm thinking of maybe getting some more of those, but for now, for today, let's just stick to the very, very basic of creating this rope. So this is basically just 2 colors of 11-0. Think of it that way, but I have incorporated an entire palette from one of the I'm using I believe this is June collection from Adornable Elements, and it has all these different colors in it. So I just had fun mixing them up, using each one as either the net bead or the body bead in the net. And then I put some leather inside. So you can grab these colors, or you can grab any color of 11-0 that you've got. And then just start to get started. That's all you'll need, plus some thread and a beading needle. So I think the best thread for a beginner for most of the stitches I'm going to be covering is some Fireline, just good old Fireline. If you go get some 6-pound, and let me just show you really quick here on the camera, some 6-pound Fireline, which is, you can either get frost or you can get smoke or black satin if you have black satin. It's a little hard to find these days, so smoke is just fine too. And that is a great thread. Another great thread is the Essilon Fire. You could use that. Wildfire will work too. We are working with 11-0. Wildfire is a little bit thicker, but I do think you'll be able to use it for this project. Stick to the 0.006 size if you are going to use Wildfire. And we'll do a series about thread, guys. I know I'm kind of glossing over that right now, but I'm thinking of doing an entire video on just thread. So hang tight for that if you have more thread questions. For today's project, just grab one of those 3 items, either a 0.006 Wildfire, 6-pound Fireline. You could use 8-pound and 4-pound. That's going to work too. Or you can use some of the Essilon Fire. I believe that only comes in one size. Correct me if I'm wrong, but I think that the size I have seems to be like the 6-pound standard size. I'll look into that and post details of that in the video I'm going to be doing about thread. But you wouldn't want to use something like Nymo. I mean, you want to stick with something that's going to give you structure. So you'll need that. You'll need a size 10, 11, 12 beading needle. Any of them are going to work. So what I have here is a size 10. This is from Beadalon. It's a little, hard beading needle that is a good size for most bead weaving projects. And I tend to use a really generous hole diameter beads. Like, for example, the beads for today's project are 11-0 Miyuki rounds. These beads have a very generous internal hole diameter that you can get multiple passes through. So I don't even blink about using a size 10 beading needle with this. It's totally going to work out just fine for me. At the very end, the only other thing you're going to need is something to string it on. And here you have limitless options. I'm showing here a leather option. This is 1.5 millimeter leather with some adjustable knots. So you can put it on and off. You can use smaller leather. I think today I would like to finish this darker colored with the smaller leather. I believe this is just 1 millimeter. Let me show you really quick. Yes, that's 1 millimeter or 1.5 millimeter. Other options include you could use beading wire. You could use medium, fine. And if you use beading wire, one of the things I like to do with beading wire is I will add a couple of little beads at the end. And I'm going to show you how to finish the ends so that they look like that when you go to string either your leather or your beading wire. And then you can put a couple little beads at the end and then put a clasp on at the crimp. That's another great option. You can always just feed any kind of medium that fits. I think that 3-needle chain from Silver Silk and More will fit right through the center of these. And then you could wear that as a necklace too. I've seen these made beautiful, beautiful necklaces. One other option is you can feed it onto memory wire. So if you're someone who likes to work with memory wire, these will feed right on to memory wire, no problem. And they look really, really cool in those. So here's how to do it. I'm going to move these aside for now. And we're going to get started with a comfortable length of working thread. So I recommend cutting in what's called a wingspan. And when you hear in bead weaving folks say, I need a wingspan of thread, they're talking about holding one side of the thread in one hand and then the spool in the other side of your hand, and then just spread your arms out. You'll get about 65 inches when you do that. That's a comfortable working length. When you start going over 65 inches, you end up with a potential for getting knots because you're pulling through so much thread as you do each stitch that not only does it take forever, but your chance of getting a knot is really, really, really high. So 65 inches is a really good length to start. I like to have a pair of chain nose pliers handy when I'm going to thread my needle. You can flatten the end of Fireline, Wildfire, Essalon Fire, all of those. They're the types of threads that have a coating on them that will enable you to flatten them like a thin piece of paper. And then you just feed that right on there. Fold over I usually fold over about 10 inches or so when I'm working with a full 65-inch length. And you'll be just kind of holding on to this as you work. So just pinch it in your fingers, and you'll just be using, as you sew, you'll be kind of pinching this part right here so that it stays folded over. And then as you get toward the end of your thread, you can let out some of this length by just kind of pulling and folding over again, and it'll get shorter and shorter. And then you can stop when you have a tail that's 7 inches, and that's a great point to weave in a new strand. But to get started, I'm going to fold it over a little more to make it less length that I'm working with. And often with a bead weaving stitch, you'll see notation that says, cut this much thread, leave a blank inch tail. So what they mean by that is when you start your beadwork, you want to start your beadwork with the first bead somewhere from the end of your tail thread. So this is the end that doesn't have the needle on it. And usually for me, if it's something that's simple like the one we're doing today will be a 7-inch tail, you'll just measure 7 inches from the end. So for me, that's right here. And this is the spot where you're going to begin your beadwork. And you'll just leave this hanging for the end when you can weave it in. So what I'm going to do now is I'm going to get some beads. To get started, we're going to want to have 2 colors. I'm grabbing this beautiful blue color, which is, if you like it, the color is called Semi-Frosted Blue Lined Crystal. So that's a Miyuki color. And then I really like this one, which is a dyed silver line dark coral. That's a really pretty color right there. But this palette, if you're working with the same palette I am, has a bunch of other colors in it that really complement and really pop. And You'll see as I get to start talking about the length and the design, how you can really play with that, pulling the net points out into different colors, and how fun it is to just kind of make different palettes. I love to color block with net rope. It's something that I just really love doing. So you'll want to string on the following. This design has net points and it has body stitches. So in a design like this, the blue color you see here in this segment, those are the body ones, and then the little orange ones are my net points. For this one, orange is going to be my net point. So we're going to pick up one orange and two blue, one orange, two more blue, one orange, and two more blue. So you should have that. Thread that all the way down to the spot we marked with our fingers here as our tail thread. And if you need to remeasure, that's okay. But right here is our tail. And the tail thread's flexible. It doesn't need to be exactly the amount that they usually list. That's usually just a minimum amount. It's okay to go over it, and it's okay to go slightly under. So here's my tail, working side. I'm going to bring my needle back through the first bead. So I'm headed through the bead, heading in through the side of the bead that the tail's coming out. So just like that, and it's going to form a ring. You'll know you got it because you'll get a beautiful little pop like that. So that's the beginning of our netted rope. Go around all these beads again. And so what I mean by that is we're just going to retrace our steps to make it hold its shape as we work. So you want to go through all the beads and just exit from that orange bead again. And you'll probably be able to get through a few of them at a time. I get through this next one here. And the next one. You'll know it's the right one because it'll be the one your tail thread is poking out of. So you'll be crossing that tail thread again. So just like that. And that's all you got to do to get started with this type of rope. So you have that nice little ring. And so what I usually do is I'll just kind of hold the work like this now. You'll have a lot more to hold on to after you get going. But for now, just pinch it in between your finger and thumb. And we're going to pick up another set of beads, which are going to be the first little net point. You're going to want to pick up one blue, one orange, which is our net point, and another blue. Skip over the two blue and go through the next orange, which is your next net point in that first ring. And what'll happen with round stitches, that first row is just going to kind of hang out like that for a second. You can help it by pushing it upward like this, but it's not really necessary until we get all the way around. What we're going to do next is repeat that, and we're going to head through the next net point over here. So here's blue, orange, and blue. And we'll go right here through this next net point. And again, it's still flat. You can help them kind of scrunch up a little bit after this next step. What we have here is the last orange net point. It'll be the one your tail is exiting from. We're going to go through that bead with the last connection. So here's another blue, orange, blue. I'm going to skip these two here and go through that last orange one. And we'll have our tail thread to help us out when we want to tighten it. So just go through that bead, pull tightly. And now go ahead and take your working side, tail side, and pull. Pull tightly. And you can kind of push these new additions upward. And you'll know they're the right ones because they'll have the orange bead in the center. So that's what you're going for, just like that. And then your working threads exiting from that bottom orange bead, that net point. We need to do what's called a step up. We're going to do this every round. We'll go step up through the blue 11-0 and the orange net point here. That's where we want to be to start the next round. So you want to step up through those two. And you can continue to hold on to the tail thread as you do this. And this is the only round where it might still try to go flat on you. After this, it's going to stay in a tubular position. So with your thread exiting from that orange net point, pick up one blue, one of the orange, and one of the blue, and go through the next orange bead in the round. So this will be the one that you added first in that last round. Or actually, we stepped up through the first one, so this is the second one. But all you really need to look for is it's the very next one. Now, where it gets a little confusing is as you're working around, you want to make sure you don't work into the first row. It's mostly pretty clear to see it, but you're going to be essentially doing the same thing. You're going to be skipping 2 blue and going through the next orange. It should be the one that's poking up right at the top. And so you want to get through just that orange bead. Pull that tightly. And you can see we've got a lot of thread here to work with. That's why I always recommend 65 inches is about the max I would go. Especially when you're just getting started. So this is the last of this round. You've got the blue and the orange and the blue. You want to go through the net point that you stepped up into after the second round, after the first round is completed. So you're going to be skipping over the one with the tail. See the one with the tail coming out? We're going to not go through that one. We want to go through this one. So you see we're really starting to get that shape now. And then you'll want to step up again into the next blue bead and the next orange bead, which represents that net point. Let's do another round together. So we're going to go ahead and take a look. The next net point is this one. You're skipping these 2 blue beads and going through the next net point bead. Here's blue, orange, blue, and you want to go through the next net point bead. Sometimes a top-down view of the work can really help you see where you're supposed to go. And here's the last net point. So the common pitfalls are skipping the last net point by accident and going through the one you're supposed to step up into. That's a common mistake when you're new to the stitch. So you just want to watch for it. And one way you can learn the stitch that can help a little bit is to just visualize each of the 3. So if you look at this before we start the next round, you'll see you've got 1 and 2 and 3. You can see them very clearly. So you know those are where you're jumping to. When you pick up your next set, you know you want to jump to this next one here. That's starting number 1, 1 and 2 and 3. You want to jump over these 2, head through this net point. Completes that round. Here's the last one, 2 and 1. You want to go through this last one and keep in mind it'll have its start coming out of the other side of it, right? You go through that one, completing that round, and then you'll want to step up to start the next round. Here's that step up one more time. So now you're starting to have something to hold on to, which makes it really convenient. Another thing I wanted to mention is If you have something like a little dowel, this is a silver silk one meant for hollow mesh. It's going to be a little too big, but I can use it to kind of round out the beginnings of this rope. If you have something that is 2 millimeters, so it's pretty small as far as dowels go, but if you have a really tiny 2 millimeter-ish kind of thing, one thought that I did have was Silver Silk and Moore's leather knitted chain. It's a little big, but it might work as far as getting started. The only thing is just the starting part right here is a little tight. But as you can see, if you prefer having something to work around, Silver Silk's leather knitted chain is actually very sturdy and can help you visualize your stitches a little bit. And last but not least, if you're really struggling to see those net points, you could change the color of your net point every other row. So when you start your first ring, use color A net point, and then have a color B point that is sharply contrasting. And that could actually look very cool as well in your design. And it's a great way to visualize it if you're having trouble seeing round 1 versus round 2 versus round 3, 4. So you see we have a set of 5 net points. Each of those represents a trip that we've done around, including the first ring we created. You could just keep alternating the color every other round if you felt that helped. So that is how to do netted rope in a nutshell. If you keep going, you can bring it to whatever length you desire. And I wanted to talk a little bit about the patterns that I like to do. So one really cool thing you can do is this little color block. The color blocks are neat because they break up the monotony a little bit. If you do a whole solid color, you know, it's going to take you a while to finish it. And so you're going to start to get a little bit, you know, sleepy on the job. It's often what happens to me. I'm like, okay. And I go take a break, but I get a lot more excited if I'm changing the colors. For some reason, seeing that next color pop out really adds to my motivation for finishing stuff. So I also think it's a great measurement aid. So each of these little color block segments that I create, they're all an inch. So I have a 6-inch bracelet right here. By the time I put my leather through, it'll be close to 7. And I always make them adjustable. But so this is a way to do your beadwork in increments of 1 inch. You get to change the color every time. Maybe you change it back and forth, back and forth. I went for, in this particular one, I was doing this combo, and then I grabbed the other two from the Adornable Element set. This is just a slightly different. Let me put them next to each other so you can see. They're close but different, so they complement really neatly, but they're definitely really similar, so you get a really cool matchy-matchy set. Or bring in the other 4 colors from the set, which were these light neutrals, in which case I recommend you switch to crystal or frost colored thread, which is what I used in this sample. And then you can start bringing in the white and the gold and the pinks. And that looks really, really, really cool. So as you're stitching, for example, with the one we started, you would just carry this out until it measures about 1 inch. Right now we're almost to 1/2 inch. So you see how quick that goes? It really doesn't take that long. The number of rounds per inch it's kind of, you can count them, but you can be off by 1 or 2 and still measure 1 inch. So for example, this has 1, 2, 3, 4, 5, 6, 7, 8, 9, 10, 11. And then I started transitioning at 12. And what I mean by transitioning is you start to use a different color. In the row where you start to use a different color, the net point will switch on whatever round you do that. You can see where I switched it right here, where I was working with the orange as my net. And here's where I switch it to blue. And so what really happened here is I did orange, blue, orange. And let me show you that actually on here, just so you can get a good idea of what a color change looks like. So let me just undo my thread here. That's an unusual knot. One thing about knots, if you get a knot, do not pull tightly, because you don't want to use, even a small knot like this would kind of tie up your it would struggle to go through the beads, I believe. Just got some chain nose pliers here. I'm going to just pull the knot apart the manual way here. All right, there we go. Sorry about that. Knots happen. So for example, let's say we're changing color right now. Let's just switch and reverse these. So we were doing blue, orange, blue. Exiting from my net point where I did my last step up, which is right here, I'm going to switch and go orange, blue, and then orange. Skip to the next net point. We'll go through that. And then we'll go orange, blue, orange. I'm going to head to the next net point. And then one more. Next net point here. And then let's do our step up. And now our step up is going to bring us out of a blue net point. So as I carry on from here, I'll be working blue, orange, blue, orange, blue. So it's that easy to transition colors. And you can do that as often as you like. But I do really think that the 1 inch is really cool. And so you could just do either 6 or 7, and you'll get a 7-inch bracelet. When you get to the end, let me switch over to my sample that is finished. What you're going to want to do here at the very end is create an ending for it. So remember when we started, we had 2 beads in a net point, 2 beads in a net point, and we kept going like that. Well, it works the same way when you finish it. You're just going to taper down, and you're just going to string 2 beads in between each of the last net points, and you'll get this little same look. Right now it looks like this. See, it's ready to work another row. So what I'm going to do is just pick up 2, skip over to the next net point, pull that tight. There's 2, skip to the next net point, and 2. Go through the last one. So there you go. And now they match. So how to weave in, and this is also how to add thread. To weave in or add thread, you want to keep going through some rows. So what I like to do is on my very end row, I'll go around one more time and reinforce it. And then you can switch down to rows by entering one of the net points and going down through another set of the body beads, which would just be 1, and then through another net point, right? And so from here, oops, sorry about that. From here, exiting from a net point, I could keep going either up and through a net point, like that, down through a net point. I can keep going further down, travel down through like that, keep going, or like that. So just keep going around. You can even get through a few like that. See how I traveled straight up through a few rows? And it really doesn't take very much. You can do maybe 5 or 6 trips around, and then feel free to trim that thread. I like to use a thread burner. I will link this thread burner in the comments. All you need to do is just take that thread and kind of put some pressure on the bracelet while pulling up on the thread, and then just make contact with the thread right where it's popping out of that bead. And you will get a beautiful netted rope all ready to go. See how flexible it is? It's really, really, really flexible. When you do things like earrings with these, like you could put this on an earrings hoop. I've done that before, or on an earring hoop, they just make a pretty little circle like that. It's a gorgeous thing to do on an earring hoop. I highly recommend doing that. You can use memory wire also as your earring hoop, or the little store-bought ones, that click in and out of the little top. Those like they have at the craft stores. Those work great too. So any of those things are options. What I'm going to show you today is how I did an easy peasy leather closure. So you want to start with some leather, and I'm using a little different leather than the one on this one because I want to go with a little darker colorway to complement. And I'm going to wear these as a stacker. They're going to be cute together. So bring your leather through, and I usually don't even cut it off the spool yet. Just start feeding it through. And actually, the thicker leather is easier to feed through than the thinner, because the thinner is thin enough to poke out. If it pokes out, don't worry. And sometimes when you kind of train it into a circle, you're more likely to get the leather through it. You can see it kind of crawling through there. Almost there. Very close to being ready. Okay. So give yourself lots of room to do some knots if you'd like to do knots. Now, I think it's easier to just do one barrel knot, but if you want to do two, it's the same process. You just repeat it twice. With a double barrel knot, tightening it is trickier when you're putting it on and off, but it does look really cool. I often do this for necklaces more. But so to make it bigger, you bring them closer together. See? And then you can put it on. And then when you go to tighten it, you're pushing these apart. So you're pulling them apart like that. And so you have your bracelet. It's easy to kind of over cinch it though. To loosen it, then you just pull like that. So here's how to do these knots. I'll show you a couple times. They're not tricky, but they do take some practice. With your leather, exiting from your bracelet like that, bring them to meet, and then just kind of let the bracelet be at its midpoint. Cross them over each other and get them to be, you want to start if you're doing a double barrel knot for sure, you want to start them at about where you think you'll wear the bracelet. So right about like that. So maybe a little more. Just want to kind of, if you have one of those little bracelet boards, put it on the bracelet board and then start each knot here and here. So let's do this side first. Just pinch it and let's go around once. Okay. And now we're going to bring another loop around in this tail. You just need to get that tail out of your way. This next loop is going to go in to the left of it because you want to start heading this direction with this side. This is the side that was poking out this way, right? And around. Okay. And now take this end and feed it through those 3 loops that you made and pull it tightly. And you should get something that looks like that. Just a little barrel knot. And so you could stop here. This is completely adjustable. And in which case you would just pull on each of these sides. You could put a pretty bead at the bottom and you could just tighten it like that. Often that's the easiest for folks to do. But if you want to do a second knot over here, you totally can. And here's how to do that. Just got to take it back off. So let me loosen that up. So what you want to do before you tie your second barrel knot is tighten it to that position where you think you might wear it. For me, that's going to be right about there. Use a design board if you've got one. Let me show you what a design board looks like. Hang on. I do happen to have one. So if I'm going for a 7-inch bracelet, place it on here and start tying. Push your knot over to where your beadwork is. Start tying your second knot over here. So just pinch everything right about there. And let's do the same, but in this case, since our leather's headed that way, we're gonna coil this way. So bring it around, make one coil, and bring it around again and again. Each coil is heading, in this case, to the right. And now we're gonna go through those loops that we made. Okay, pinch everything if you need to, just at first, just to keep those coils in the relative positions they should be in. I made mine a little big. The smaller you can make those coils, the easier this step will be, because they do tend to move around on you a little bit. There we go. And when you pull on the side you were coiling with and heading through with, well, all that does is tighten the barrel knot. So you could hold the barrel knot and pull on that side that you were doing that coiling work with, and it's just going to tighten that barrel knot up. See, same thing on this side. All that's going to do is tighten. The action of loosening and tightening the bracelet itself is happening as you move these knots away from each other on the leather. And what's really happening there is this one is moving inside of that knot, and this one is moving inside of that knot. And as far as these little ends are, you can just cut those short if you want, because they're not doing anything anymore. The action's happening with these threads, which are crossing each other inside of those knots. So for example, you hold this side and move this side, and you hold this side and move that side, and you just made it really big. To pull the knots apart to tighten. So just like that. And over here, it's going to pull those knots just like that. And I have a good bracelet length at about 7 inches. There it is. So all you need to do is trim this now. And if you want to put pretty beads at the end, again, that's great. I often will just trim the ends. You want to do this trimming at the spot where you think you're going to wear it. And there's my bracelet. And so I'm going to bring these together so I can put it on close together as they can. And then slide those knots apart from each other to tighten it up. So just decide what you think is better for your design. If you prefer to have this kind of knot versus just a single knot. So just like that. Put this one on too. I want to see my stacking bracelets. I think I'm going to wear them out. That one is already pretty tight. So there they are. That's a really fun way to just make a really cool stacker bracelet. Let me bring up my screen one more time. So here they are, little pretty bracelets. Super fun to wear. I mean, how stylish are those? Those are really cool. And very easy. They work up actually surprisingly quick. I think you'll be surprised how fast you can make a beautiful design. So and actually, I might have switched my camera just 1 second too soon because I want to show you my next project. I'm going to switch from this to brick stitch with some delicas. And that'll be our next basics. And then the basics after that, I've already have that planned as well. That one's going to be peyote stitch even count with a single bead. And for that one, I'm going to be using my own collection of size 10 delicas, which is going to be in my shop once I release that video. That'll be toward the end of next week. But for this weekend, I'm hoping to have my brick stitch video done for you. So this will be another Joyful Basics intro to brick stitch beading. And hang tight, I'm going to switch camera one more time so you can see that. All right, and so bringing over a little collection of lemon pepper, and you can see my little butterfly here. He's the lemon pepper butterfly. I named him after this collection. The lemon pepper beads here are all listed out, and this little pattern will be included next week with, or sorry, this one I'm going to try to get done this week. I haven't started filming, but I've got the design made. So with any luck, I can get that finished. But the colors you're going to be working with are here. And they're a really interesting combination of neutrals, yellows, and black and charcoal. So sorry, I'm really fumbly today. Aren't those pretty? And hang on, let me get my little butterfly. He jumped down. Here he is. He's trying to fly away. But this came out cute. This came out super, super cute. He's like a little bug. I was thinking I might do a collection of bugs actually, because these are cool bug colors. The first thing I thought of was bees, but I've done bees a lot, so I wanted to do something a little different. But this is just a little cutie pie. I love him. And he's got a little daisy flower hidden in him. I don't know if you can spot that, but wouldn't that be cool in different colors too? You can make a pop of red. So this pattern will be ready very, very soon. And until then, I want to wish you happy beading. And I'll switch my camera one more time. And there he is. Isn't he cute? He's a really cute little guy. I had a fun time making this one. Let me see if I can hold it so you can see all of it. There we go. So it's going to be actually a really cool earring size, I think. And I'm still perfecting how to turn him into an earring. I think I might actually have a wire guardian at the center. I didn't add that for this one. I wanted to just show the beadwork, but I think a little wire guardian in between his little antennae here. But I could also glue something to the back and have him be on the ear. I could also do something like a kind of like a head pin coming out of the center with a bead. What about a flower bead? So, or a leaf, like a check glass leaf. We could have a lot of fun with this. So I hope you love your netted rope bracelets, and I hope to see you for the next one. Bye for now.